Good afternoon everybody and welcome to Monday the 1st of February's RE lesson for Key Stage 1. We are going to carry on looking at the key features of the church, following on from Mrs Terry's lesson last week, and we're going to look at the stained glass windows. So let's have a quick recap of some of the features of the church. What about this? Can you remember what this is? This is the cross, or sometimes we call it the crucifix. And this image was used last week also. Can you recall what part of the church this is and what happens there? It is the pulpit. This is where the priest stands. And what about this? Can you remember what this was called? It was the font where the water for baptism or christenings is. And where the people sit in the church is called the pew. Well done if you got those correct. But we're going to carry on looking at the stained glass windows, another feature that we looked at last week, and how they are shown in places of worship, what they look like and what their features are. So stained glass windows were used in churches to remind people of the Bible stories or the truths and stories that Jesus told to his people. And many years ago, when the churches were first built, a long time ago, lots of people could not read. And so the church windows with the images of the Bible stories reminded people of those stories so that they could retell them using the images that they saw in the window. The colours in the window were really important because each colour represented different things. So here are a lot of colours. See if you can remember and think about what each colour might have represented. So the red was used to represent the blood of Christ. And that's when we see lots of red in a window, sometimes it represents the blood of Christ. When we see the crucifix and Christ on the crucifix, you might see lots of red in those images. The blue is the colour of the sky, and it symbolises the heavens and the hope that people had. The green is the natural colour that indicated the spring and the growth and the rebirth. So we see that in lots of Easter windows, or when we see lots of Bible stories or symbols that look at regrowth and growth and rebirth. So violet symbolises love and truth, so we see lots of violet and beautiful colours like violet and blue and greens in our windows. Black is not a colour we see very often in our windows because black is a dark colour. It doesn't let a lot of light in and it represents death. So it is a colour we do not see very often in our windows. But yellow is another beautiful colour, and that represents the gates of heaven, the golden colour. It's similar to, so it looks at power and glory and symbolises heaven. So we see blue and yellow together a lot. Brown symbolises rebirth and the worldly things and the natural life like the soil, and we see that with the greens when we look at Easter and rebirth and natural parts of our Bible stories. And then the rainbow with all the colours together symbolises people and everybody coming together in church and everybody's beliefs coming together as one, similar to all the rainbows coming together, all the colours of the rainbow coming together. And here are some of the colours that you might see within the church. When the sun shines through those beautiful glass windows with all those colours, it reflects, so it brings in lots of beautiful colour and light in our churches and our places of worship. So here are some of the images that show just the beautiful different colours that we see. So you can see lots of greens and blues and yellows in those images. Now this is a stained glass window. And if you look in the stained glass window and look at the shapes and the image, and see if you can identify what Bible story this window might have been used to retell. What does it remind us of? Take a look at the animals, take a look at the people and the baby. What Bible story might this have represented? Or what does it represent? Do you think it could be the baby be Jesus when he was first born? Who are the other people? Well done if you got it. This represents the birth of Jesus. This is a Christmas story when Mary and Joseph rode to Bethlehem so that Mary could give birth, and the three wise kings and the shepherds. Can you see the crooks of the shepherds and the animals? So that is the Christmas story. Now here's another beautiful window with lots of oranges and greens and browns in it. Now look at how the different shapes in this window create lots of different images. What images can you see? We see the cross, but what flowers are those? They're daffodils, and there's oranges and browns and yellows and greens in that window. So can you remember what those colours represented when we looked at that? They represented regrowth and rebirth and natural worldly things. So could this be a window that might represent when the growth of flowers? What story, a Bible story, does that represent? Or what time of year, what season do you think it would represent? Have a think. Did you think about it? Did you get that it might be the Easter story and the rebirth of all the growth of the beautiful flowers in spring when they bloom again, and all the blues of the sky and the yellow of the sun and the oranges and the browns and the greens for the rebirth and worldly things when all our beautiful flowers bloom again in spring? So we would see this, and this would remind us of what happens in spring. So now, can you think of any religious symbols? We've got a cross on there. What other symbol do we see quite a lot? Or what other symbol do we see that represents, or what item that brings light into a church? What do we use in church? What do people light in church? They use a candle. They use a candle and they light it, and they think of someone when they're lighting the candle. So there are two religious symbols. There are others, but we'll just look at these two. So not always was there a Bible story in the glass windows, in the stained glass windows. Sometimes we just see religious symbols. And here's some examples of the religious symbols in stained glass windows. So it's not always religious stories or Bible stories. It's just images of shapes that represent our religious symbols. So in the first two, can you see the different colours and shapes used to create the cross? And then next to the candle, there are look at the shapes used, the diamonds and the rectangles, all used to represent and make it appear that there is a candle in that window, and the different colours, the golden colours and the oranges and the reds and the yellows to represent different parts, and at the top it looks like there is a flame. And they've used, the person who's created this window has used lots of different shapes and patterns to create that. So remember that for when we come on to our task. So there are three options for this task, depending on where you are. Some boys and girls might be at home with mums and dads, some boys and girls might be in school. So there's three options to do this task. And you can either draw and colour stained glass window. So think about the colours that we'd looked at, the stories in the stained glass window, or the shapes or the religious symbols. Choose one, choose a story or a religious symbol. Think of the colours you'll need and draw and colour in your stained glass window. Or you can be a little bit more creative with this and design and create your own stained glass window using different materials that are in your home, paints or colours or paper, coloured paper, tissue paper. Or if you struggle to find the colours or the paper or the materials that you need to create your own stained glass window, you can write a list of the features of the stained glass window. If you were to draw your own, what would it look like? What story would you use, and what shapes and colours would you use? So there are 3 options. I am sure that you will all be able to draw and colour a stained glass window, but there are 3 options there for if you find that difficult or mums and dads can't help. You can use your words and the words from this video to write a list of the features. We've written lists in English so that you should be able to do that. Or to link with our science, you can use different everyday materials to create your own. But I'm sure you will be able to do the first or the second, depending on where you are. So here's some images to help you. And there are some templates on there where you can see where the crosses are and the different shapes. So you could use a ruler or freehand to draw the windows, and use your ruler to draw lots of different lines that cross over that you can create shapes with, and colour in the different colours that you would like to represent in your window. Again, think of the colours. Is it an Easter winter window? Is it just a beautiful coloured window with blues and yellows in to represent the sky and the hope and the golden gates of heaven? Or you can glue tissue paper and use some different coloured tissue paper or normal coloured paper on black paper to create your window. Now, if mums and dads are feeling adventurous, and you can use your paints. There is an image of painting on a window, but you must check with mums and dads if that's okay. Now, when your work packs came home, there were plastic wallets. You could use a plastic wallet to put different colours in your plastic wallet and different colours in to put against the window to help. So here's some easy options and some difficult options. So good luck and see you all soon.